Karen Coertze, thank you so much for joining the show. Appreciate you. You're representing the South African Society of Physiotherapy. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sian. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolute pleasure. I look forward to chatting to you today. We're going to cover a few topics around physiotherapy in SA. We're going to be looking at your upcoming conference. Very excited about that and just telling the world about that. And yeah, we'll also look at the benefits of the society and your work there. So maybe we can just start off with, tell us a little bit more about yourself, Karen. Where did you start with society, and where did your journey with physiotherapy start?
Well, I've been a physiotherapist for 33 years, so a long time ago. I studied at the University of Pretoria. After about 4 years in our country, I worked in the UK for 9 years. And then I returned and in a private practice and obtained a second one in a few years later. And then in 2021, I decided to sell the one practice and I closed down the second, which was more like a satellite practice last year. But in 2022, someone from SASP invited me for an interview for this position that I'm in now. And it was quite of a second lease on life for a bit of a change in the career after so long. Since then, I've been the private sector group liaison officer at the Society of Physiotherapy, South Africa.
Congrats. So still quite new in the role. Well done. Congratulations.
Thank you.
They must obviously value your input and your years of experience. Tell us a bit more about this society and what are some of the goals that they are aiming to achieve within the medical field?
So the South African Society of Physiotherapy is the biggest representative of physiotherapy in South Africa. We are obviously there to promote the profession and also to assist the providers with support and just knowledge and engaging with them and actually be the voice for physiotherapy on the government level and also with the HPCSA.
Fantastic. And you must probably have an ear to the ground of some of the challenges facing the physiotherapy discipline itself. I've recently heard about medical aid issues, some claiming, even crawlback of some sort of medical aid claims, as well as tax claimbacks that have caused quite a bit of ruction. Are you aware of that? Could you maybe unpack some of the challenges, maybe some of those that I mentioned or anything else?
Yeah, so because my role is more private, I'm obviously more aware of the private sector and the medical scheme involvement. So I do liaise in my position. I do liaise with the medical schemes quite often. If our members have struggles with anything in their field or non-payments of certain things, then we have meetings with the medical schemes and we're trying to collaborate and build relationship and rapport to actually just be able to resolve those issues and to come with the challenges from both sides, because often it's not just the physios having challenges with the medical schemes, but sometimes the schemes also have challenges with some of the claims that's not correct or things that is difficult for them to process. So it's a collaboration we're trying to build with a lot of the schemes. Unfortunately, it's not that easy to always get the right contact at the schemes and getting time that they actually can offer to us. So, but we're trying our best to represent our members at the schemes and to deal with that. We are also very involved. Myself would also attend like the Health Council engagements or some of the National Health Department, some of those engagements. But we also have a public sector. So a lot of that will be dealt with from the public sector. And we have another professional officer which is more for the public and with the community service physios and working on that side, more on the ethical and government side of things than dealing with the medical schemes, because I will be doing that. So we're trying to cover all fields, and we definitely have a strong private sector and public sector group. And membership is kind of divided into those two groups, but then we also have the academic side that people are academic members, and that's from people from the universities.
Okay, brilliant. Well, thank you. So there's definitely a role to be played. What have you seen in you've got quite an extensive history, having seen the profession. Have you seen any significant changes on the physio landscape itself, or maybe the broader allied health side in the last 10 years or so?
I think the changes that I've experienced in my practice, and obviously now the problems as well, is we all know that the medical schemes cover a very small amount of people. So it's about the access of cover and access to health. And unfortunately, from the economy point of view, the medical schemes is cutting down on some of the services because of their own challenges that they have with their member base, people getting older. So obviously they need to have a lot of that also to cover, to make sure that they've got money to cover the people. So that has become difficult for practices because the benefits is shrinking for physiotherapy and for allied health, for all professions, but definitely a lot for the non-essential physiotherapy, which is, I mean, it's essential to go if you've got pain and whatever to get it solved, but it's not like the intensive care physiotherapy where it's really, really important. So there is definitely some challenges for the practices, especially for private practice because of the funding. And then also, I think the whole environment in our country where the economy is not always problematic. And then jobs, and we know about the ComServes that might complete the ComServes, but then there's not for them jobs available, or even the people that finishes their degree, then there's not ComServe posts. So there's a lot of challenges on ground level regarding employment and that type of thing. But so what we see is a lot of smaller practices coming up and people trying to, if they can't get employment, then they rather start their own thing. So I do think economy wise, there's quite a lot of challenges. And then
No, for sure.
obviously, the uncertainty with the national health and what's going to happen with that. People are concerned, especially in private practice, because they're not really know where it's going to go. We try to inform them as much as we can from our side to keep them up to date with what is going on and what are the changes. So that's one of the things that we're trying to do, is to support them in that way.
Brilliant. I mean, that was going to be one of my next questions is to what extent has the NHI, even though it's not been implemented, and probably the practicality of implementing that is going to be something to be seen, but it has been signed into Parliament. So what effects have you seen besides the fact that it's obviously a lot of uncertainty and I think mental stress as to what's coming? Have you seen anything actually happening or changing?
So we haven't really, well, because I'm not in private practice anymore, I don't know exactly how it's affecting the individual practices. But obviously, from my role where I am, we have been very fortunate to have one of the physios in the steering group of the National Health, where they're doing the CUPS, which is the pilot sites, been beneficial that has happened on behalf of rehabilitation professions. So there is an element in there that if things are needed from the rehabilitation side, and that's covering all the rehabilitation professions. So that is a good thing. Then, like I said, we're trying to just inform our members the whole time, keep them posted. But what we also have is we've got a norms and standards program that we have had for a while, but we have now aligned it with the Office of Health Standards Compliance, because if the NHI rolls out, practices will have to be accredited, actually be able to offer services. So our program, we decided it was kind of up there, but we decided to align it exactly with the Office of Health Standards. So if a practice goes through that accreditation, it will not automatically agree that a guarantee that they will be actually accredited by the NHI, but because they've gone through the processes, means that everything will be in place that they most probably will need. So that is very beneficial if they actually go through that process. It's the
Yeah.
kind of things we're doing to prepare our members to going forward.
Brilliant. Sounds like a very good proactive step. I do imagine even though that might be a very wise choice, not everyone will do it because they're so busy and inundated with running their practice and the daily stresses of things. What misconceptions are there about physiotherapy? I mean, as someone who is not knowledgeable, might hear all these terms: occupational therapy, physiotherapy, biokineticist, what personal trainer. Where do you guys fit into that landscape and that picture? And what's unique about physiotherapy?
So I think it's the broad base that we are involved with, and that we are first-line practitioners outside of the hospitals. So people do not need a referral to come to us. They can actually attend a private physio practice without having a referral. And I think the concept a lot with public out there is massage therapists, because people have never experienced the need for physiotherapy. So I think there is still, I think it's decreasing, but I think there is still that conception of I just go to a massage therapist instead because they're going to do the same. So I think people don't always know exactly what the role of physio is. But I mean, we have got special interest groups, which is in different special fields of interest. And we range from mental health to women's pelvic health to sport to cardiorespiratory to neurorehabilitation, musculoskeletal, pediatrics, aquatics. So it's a very vast range of where physiotherapy is involved. And I think that's something that the public is not really aware of.
Yeah, I think we should change that because it sounds fascinating. Those things, each of them is a discipline in itself and has a specific application to a specific sector of the market. Would you say, I mean, just thinking about physiotherapy, like you said, people don't think they need it. They mistake it for massage therapy. You probably don't know that much about it until you're actually in a position where you're actually forced to have to take, have physiotherapy done. Like if you're in an accident or you have a serious injury of some kind. Are there some proactive steps people can take, or maybe some stats or knowledge that you have that you can help people just get to that place where they can actually see the value of that for themselves, not when it's like almost too late? Like, can people do something now?
So I think what we as a society is trying to do is to create awareness of physiotherapy, obviously linking it to health days, the health calendar days. So we as a private sector group, this is just amongst our members, but I know from our social media side, they're also trying to do it amongst public, is that we use the health calendar days to raise awareness. So if it's breast cancer month like this month, we as a private sector group has got that I Love Boobies challenge that we've got a Strava club for our society. And then we will post that kind of awareness and trying to get people to sign up for that. From the social media side, if there's something like asthma or any health calendar day, they will do a lot of posts out to the public page that we have and to get as much information out to the public. So yeah, so we're trying to really educate and alert the public of where physio plays a role and what they can do. So like osteoporosis or anything that comes up on the health calendar, we're really trying to promote from that side.
Okay, great. Well, I hope just to help add amplification to those messages, I think it is so important. I mean, I can imagine taking something like physiotherapy and physical health seriously could extend your not only your quality of life, but your actual life. Have you had any really cool success stories or interventions where you've been able to really help someone that you might want to highlight?
Me personally,
You
yes.
personally, or just from what you've seen, perhaps?
Well, it's almost like impossible to name it. Each
Which one stands out? Yeah.
one of the ones, I mean, that I stand out, I've been working in trauma and critical care for a long time. And a lot of those trauma cases, they are really broken people. The satisfaction, if you can actually see that someone like that, even if it takes months, and it does often, that rehabilitation, the effort that they actually can go back to activity of daily living. I myself, there's one that I recall very much that was actually a organ recipient, and he had a very high functional job and life. And he was just so weak. And even after receiving the organ, it was really a very long, slow process to motivate him and to actually get him to just wanting to do the rehab and participate in the rehab. And it was not just a physical support, it was literally a emotional support as well. And the great thing about it is that we got him to walk a few steps before he went to another rehab center. And about 3 months later, he actually came to visit me at the hospital to show me that he was fully functional again. He was in his suit and he was like, I almost didn't recognize the man. So that's the type of rehab and stuff that I really remember. Those type of
Mhm.
people stick with you. But then just looking at the role that physios play with children in pediatrics, cerebral palsy and lots of other, there's just in every field, there's so many success stories and the support that the physios give. And I think that the difference is the physio or any rehab professional for that in that matter, but I'm talking now about physiotherapy, is the journey that you walk with the people. It's not a quick visit. It's not a 5 minutes and it's over. It's a journey, and it's a
Yeah.
journey with family. It's a journey with the patient, and then in the end to also collaborate with the other team members, and it's a total journey together. The time that physios spend with the patients, I think that engages us with the family and with more on the emotional level as well. So it's definitely, I think the journey is what makes it worthwhile.
So, I mean, resonates with some of the other feedback and interviews that I've had where people have mentioned this, where as a physio, potentially as an OT and a few others as well, but definitely as a physio, you almost you walk like that path with them literally. Like sometimes you have to help them walk again. It's a very intimate space. You get to know people really closely, and they kind of have to let you into their life, into their daily life, into their family in a way. And so you also mentioned mental health earlier in terms of some of the aspects that are important with regards to what you do. So it's not just the physical. Could you maybe expand on the importance of that emotional and mental support that you give? Are you guys trained in that, or is it something you develop over time?
So it's a special interest that you develop because we're not, at the moment, we can't specialize in specific areas, and that specialities don't get recognized yet, although there's a massive battle for that and there's movement in that direction, which is very positive. So we're not allowed to call ourselves specialists, but obviously as a physio, you choose an area that you have interest in. And then you will equip yourself by attending that type of courses and as many of that courses in that field. And you equip with yourself with whatever is available to educate yourself and upskill yourself. So it's not a official upskilling, but it's a lot of intense activities that you attend and reading and articles and whatever to ensure that you actually know the latest and do that in your field. So we all know that mental health is increasing worldwide. So there's definitely an increase in the interest in that field as well. Unfortunately, it is one of the challenges with schemes to pay for that and to fund that. And I think just there's a history about it or whatever, but historically, but I think it might change going forward. But that is the difficulty with that is the funding in private. But it's a very valuable field. It's the input that the research shows that physical activities in mental health patients does actually benefit the patient tremendously. So the whole focus from the physio side is to have activities and to get the patient to be active. So that is the importance on that side.
Wow, that's fascinating. I mean, I can imagine you may have been in this situation yourself, perhaps with even the gentleman you spoke of, and some other instances that you might have seen or know about, where you can see if they do these exercises and they show up regularly, they will improve and they will get better. But then sometimes you might be faced with someone who just feels like giving up or not even trying because they just feel it's so overwhelmed with just the work that needs to go into it and almost needs to have faith that this is even going to help. What do you do in those situations? I mean, how do you help motivate someone to see their potential again and to rekindle what little strength they have and pull themselves together?
Yeah, I
Aren't you
think
so
it's
challenging?
Yeah, I think it's difficult, especially in what I mentioned about the trauma patients or even patients with chronic back pain. I think they live with so much pain that they most probably can't see that it will ever improve. And a lot of patients don't improve necessarily to a point of fully functional, but that they actually can start seeing the small steps. And I think that's the important bit is to really build trust with your patient and to encourage them in small bits and small steps to see that they're reaching an end goal. And even if the end goal, like I said, is not fully functional, but it's the improvement of quality of life and looking at the patient as a whole, not just as a knee or an ankle, or it is the holistic approach towards the patient. And then also to get their buy-in is very important. I mean, you need to build that trust so that you can also through education and advice and that people can see by education that you really it's a negotiation with the patient about their plan. It's not just I give you a plan and you need to do it or I'm going to do this with you. The patient really needs the buy-in because they need to know that they feel empowered to make decisions. So I think that's the important thing is to realize that this is a team effort. It's not a physio effort or a patient effort. It's a team effort. And that is the way forward. Although it stay with some patients, it remains a challenge and you can understand that if it doesn't seem as if anything is changing initially, and that's why I'm saying it's a journey and you have to have that collaboration between you and the patient because and with a mutual can be challenging, but there are ways that you can work around it. And patience is a good idea to have patience with the journey.
Absolutely. You also mentioned this importance of collaboration, and South Africa's healthcare system is known for being quite fractured. The medical industry sometimes has been labeled as being working in silos, but yet this collaboration, looking at the whole patient, I know there's this awareness is growing in conferences. This message is going out, like we need to look at the human being, and then as practitioners, as specialists, as physicians or whatever, physiotherapists, we need to look at that whole person together and be able to share and transfer the knowledge that we have of that patient from our perspective so we can create this holistic picture. How have you found that to be the case? Is there resistance to that because now you got a lot of people involved and it becomes very expensive very quickly? Or is there a bit of a collaborative spirit amongst perhaps in your circles that you've seen where you guys do put your heads together and look at the patient holistically?
I think there are pockets of where it's happening. Obviously, the ideal will be that it's everywhere, but it's unfortunately not everywhere as far as my knowledge. I might be wrong, but my experience is it's not everywhere. But we're really trying hard from our society side as we are part of a rehab in Durban. So we are working with the physios, the OTs, the speech and language therapists, the audiologists. So it's a group of people who's driving rehabilitation forwards as a group. And that is collaboration between the professions, which is great. I think in small hospital or in the hospital settings, there will be collaboration between the multidisciplinary team. And going forward, the Health Council has now allowed multidisciplinary practices, which can go forward. So in that sense, I think the emphasis is there to get that whole collaboration going and to realize that it is a team effort and moving forwards. Years ago when I was working in the UK, that was one of my roles in my post that I had was to promote multidisciplinary working and to actually just get the message out there that we all work for the same goal is to get the patient functional and better. And
Yeah.
so it's been a battle for a long time because I mean that's years ago. I'm talking about when did I go? 1994 to 2003. So we're talking about a long time ago, and even then there it was. But I do think the awareness is getting more. And on a private practice basis, I think the referrals from a physio to a bio or from who other profession is needed, I think there is definitely an awareness that collaboration is the way to go forwards.
Brilliant. That's good to hear, and it gives one hope for the future. You mentioned a rehab conference. What other conferences do you have available? I know there's one coming up, the NEXUS event. Maybe tell us a bit about your calendar. Typically, which conferences do you want to highlight? And obviously, unpack for us what we can expect from this upcoming NEXUS event.
So the Nexus is not a full conference. It's just basically from the private sector. We want to equip practices with being optimal practitioners and practice owners. But we're also aiming it at people being employed in private practice. But there is still generic things we're going to cover, like record keeping, specific ethical coding. So there's a lot of things that's going to be covered that is not just for private sectors. But the aim is for our private sector role that we have. That's why we're focusing a lot on what's happening in private. And what is great about it, it's really, we have good speakers. We've got topics such as the PIA and the POPI, and every year there's like, what do I do with a PIA report? So we're going to inform people about that more. It's going to be about ethical coding, record keeping. We have PPS is going to have a talk about the financial side of practices. We have, let me just think of other topics. I can't off my mind or my head now. But yeah, so we're going to talk about the responsibilities of physiotherapy with the COID amendments that is there. So there's quite a range of topics. And then we're trying to do this. We had one in Kabeja in June. So we're going to try to do it in different provinces, like at least 3 in a year for going the year forward. And then we also looking at a possible symposium in Johannesburg next year in September. And then there's smaller things that happen from the special interest groups that's happening. But those are the two things that from our side is at the moment that I'm aware of. I'm not sure about what the special interest groups do, but there's always little small things happening. And then we also have a very quite active and busy online webinars that we offer. And that has been very well attended most of the times, depending on the topic, obviously. Some topics are more like out for grabs. But yeah, we're trying to really have a full program where people can actually enroll to. And that's not open just for our members. It's actually open for any physiotherapist. So yeah, and the same with the NEXUS. The NEXUS is also open to other physios as well, not just our members.
Okay, brilliant. If there's any advice you had to give to someone starting their own practice in physio or entering the market, what advice would you give them?
I think to definitely do very good market research to ensure, because I think location is, to me, that's the essence of it all. And to really think it through and to know why you are doing it, to have your why of why do I want to open a practice? And I think it's a very important question, because sometimes it's just the thing you do because of the way your life has gone. But it's a big responsibility, and I think it's really important to know why you're doing it. So if you can answer that and you are convinced that that's the way to go, then I think it's to do your preparation well, to ensure that your research about the market, about what is available, like programs, what are you going to do with your billing, how are you going to manage your practice, practice management programs, all of that. I think it's important to not just let it happen as you go, but to actually plan for it. And then I also think the important is obviously the referral base. So make connection with who's going to refer to you. And that is part of the research that you need to do them. It's not just who you're going to target, but who's actually going to refer. So it's very important to do your homework well before you just start with a practice. And to understand the ethical rules of the Health Council, that is essential, because unfortunately there is quite a lot of rules and restrictions for us with reason. But if we're not aware of that, we can step into difficulties. So I think that is, to me, the message is know why, be prepared, and do the right research.
100%. That's some great advice. To your knowledge, do you know of any issues around something like non-payment, which, as far as I'm concerned, has been popping up more often than we've expected? Is that something that happens in physio practices or less so?
I think if you've got a practice, then you know about non-payments. I think it's very, very obvious to anyone. And there's different reasons for the non-payments. So you get the reasons that the fund for the patient is depleted. It often happens that the patient doesn't even know their funds are depleted. And with physio, we have the challenge that the live, with dental and a lot of medical services, they can have a live tracking of the funds of the patient. But unfortunately, that's not really readily available for us. So we trust that the patient has got the money. And I think that's why a lot of practice is starting to go more like a cash practice and the patient has to claim back. But that's got challenges in itself because of the economy, what I mentioned before. I found that a lot of patients don't have that luxury of doing that. So again, it depends on your area and where you're practicing, but yeah, that in itself is quite challenging. So I think what is great is that that people starting to put things in place to prevent that from happening, but it's impossible to stop it happening. So yeah, that's what we're trying to promote as well through our NEXUS is, and I know that Toppy from CODICOM, one of the topics we're going to talk about at NEXUS, which is great, is the changing the patient payment behavior and to see you can actually get the best benefit out of the money in and actually be able to minimize your bad debts.
100%, Jana. Knowing Topi, that is one of his biggest goals, is to do that impossible, to see how, in what way we can actually diminish and stop non-payment to as far as possible, so that more practitioners can get the money that they are, deserving to get paid. And people can realize that, maybe there's some habitual people that just don't pay or because they just don't want to. Everyone's situation is different, but there might be some bad apples just ruining the whole batch for everyone else. And hopefully we can put an end to that. But thank you so much. I see there's some comrades certificates at the back there. What do you do for fun and recreation? Do you run? And what else do you do?
obviously running if there's a comrade certificate on my wall. I love running. I do not do that many distance running anymore. My furthest now is 21s. But I've had a very good journey in running. I only started running late in my life at the age of 40. And I then subsequently did 5 comrades and many long trail runs like the Otter and roads. And so it's been a very good passion of mine. And it keeps me fit and happy and stress-free. So it's still my stress reliever, although I don't do huge running anymore. But I just love it. And I love being active. I also do a lot of hiking. I just love the mountains and being out in nature, being active and hiking is also a big passion. And then I also do art. I do some oil painting and just keep myself busy on that level.
Wonderful. Well, Karen, thank you so much for just sharing and giving of your time today. Looking forward to the conference. I hope it's going to be well received. And looking forward to meeting you when I'm there in
Yeah, I
Joburg.
just want to correct. It's not a complete conference. It's more like what we call it in the NEXUS event. And the reason behind it is that we realized since COVID, we haven't had in-person touch with our members. So we've lost the connection. And the word NEXUS means connection. And that is the whole idea, is to actually get to connect with our members, but also to get the members to connect with each other again and to network and make them realize that that is the importance of the in-person meetings to just collaborate as a profession again.
100%. Yeah. Well, may that be very successful. Looking forward to connecting when we're there.